I'm Edwin Warfield. I'm the publisher of CityBiz. I'm honored today to interview Gilbert Dussek, who is the CEO of Gunnison Consulting Group. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Your career included stints at Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics. Can you tell us about your career and the decision to join Gunnison Consulting Group in 2019?
Sure, yeah. I started at Lockheed in the early 2000 timeframe, mostly in the intelligence side of the world. And after spending about 7, 8 years there, a lot of great experiences, was looking to go work for a smaller company. And at that time, one of my mentors at Lockheed Martin actually went to SRA and was interested to find out if I wanted to go join him over there. So SRA, by comparison, at that time was probably $1 billion in some change. So compared to the $40 billion of Lockheed Martin, smaller by comparison. So took the leap and went over there, and interesting, but in an interesting but unplanned symmetry in my career. All the time at Lockheed was spent doing defense intel, but then when I came over to SRA, it was mostly on the health and civilian side of things. So got a lot of experience seeing how that side of the world worked, and then was there for the merger with CSRA, and then the eventual acquisition of GDIT. And then in looking around again, realizing I'm part of another $40 billion company, speaking as the guy who wanted to go work for a smaller company. So shortly after the GDIT acquisition, been having conversations with folks I respected in the industry, and then this opportunity at Gunnison Consulting Group came up. And full disclosure, I didn't know much about Gunnison at the time, but what I learned about them was certainly appealing. In that they were around for about 25 years, and as weird as it sounds, still wanted to figure out what they wanted to be when they grew up. And they were looking at a whole host of options. And one of the options they decided to pursue was to still maintain control of the company, but be venture capital backed and use some of those investment dollars to help drive pipeline, talent, and potential M&A activity down the road. So that was the option they decided to move with. And concurrent with that going down the venture cap route came an introduction of myself to the company through Blue Delta Capital Partners, who's the company who's providing the minority equity stake in Gunnison at the time.
So you've been there for a little over a year. Can you tell us some key milestones during your stewardship, and where is Gunnison Consulting Group today in terms of presence and impact and clients?
Yeah, and going back to the previous answer for a second, I mean, part of the investment thesis with Blue Delta and part of my coming on board and the strategy there was to think about, we're taking a company that's been doing really great work, really happy customers, really strong team, and figure out how we're going to make the transition like many other companies from the small business to the mid-market space, and do that without falling on our face. So a big part of our conversations up front were around, let's think about how we can be deliberate in the actions that we take. And if we know that the small business graduation cliff is coming in the next 3 to 5 years, do you want to start preparing for that now? Or do you want to start preparing in year 4.5? And then there's the oh crap moment. So all of us, eyes wide open early on, said, you know what, we're going to do the things that we need to do now to prepare ourselves for that transition. And so that included things such as building a stronger growth engine, bringing some talent on board, looking at opportunities where M&A might make sense. And so all of those things factored into the mix as far as what we were going to be doing, at least in the first year at Gunnison. So the first year we brought on some new talent, we brought a new CFO on board, we hired some folks for our growth team in the roles of capture and proposal management and solution architecture. And then all that culminated with an acquisition towards the end of 2020, which is already bared fruit and is going to put us in a great position in 21.
Can you just give us a sort of quick overview of the capabilities that you provide to government agencies?
Yeah, so agile transformation is a big piece of what we do, and some DevOps. Automated testing is an area that we've been pretty proficient in, but a lot of our claim to fame is on the data analytics side of the house. And so one of our customers, our first customer 25 years ago, was at the U.S. Census Bureau. And so we've been supporting the decennial census. I guess we just supported our third one last year. and then the series of surveys that take place in between the decennials. So there are some that take place every year, every couple of years, every few years. So a lot of the great capabilities we have fall in the data analytics area. So, and then with the addition of the acquisition that we did late 2020, adding ITSM to our portfolio as well, and some cybersecurity capabilities are two additional areas that I'd say have gotten added to our book of business.
Can you tell us who your major clients are and some of your projects related to them?
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned, Census Bureau, our largest customer. At the Patent Trademark Office, we're doing a lot of automated testing for them. And so that's been a very successful effort for us over the past 5 years. We've taken some of what we've done there in automating their testing processes and release processes and brought it over to FDA, where we're doing some end-to-end testing there for one of their organizations. NIH is a customer of ours as well, that we've had it for a while. And then with the acquisition that we did last year, we added Department of Defense into our portfolio, as well as some other federal civilian agencies we've been looking to get into for a while, such as the House of Reps, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the National Science Foundation, and then most recently, the Department of Interior.
So last November, Gunnison acquired G2SF. Can you tell us about that acquisition and the implications for Gunnison?
Sure, yeah. So, part of this transformation from small to mid-market, there was a realization that some of this may not happen organically and that we might need to make some targeted acquisitions along the way. And so as early as April of last year, we were, making our rounds, talking to some of the investment banks and advisors about potential targets out there. We kind of laid out some of the key qualifiers that were important to us in terms of customer, vehicles, size, and things of that sort. And in G2SF, the company we acquired, we found all those and more. So from a customer access standpoint, I just articulated some of the agencies that they had access to that we've been trying to break into, and so that certainly provides us an accelerated path to do that. From a vehicle access standpoint, they had a couple interesting vehicles, all full and open vehicles, at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission as well as at the Navy. So those were very appealing to us as well. And I kind of alluded to it, a full and open portfolio, the entirety of their portfolio being full and open, is something rare for a company their size, them being a fraction of what Gunnison was in terms of total annual revenue. And so to find a company that size, full and open, great vehicle access, customer access, some of the new capabilities in the ITSM realm, and then the culture piece was important to us as well. I think Gunnison has prided itself on being very big on taking care of the people and taking care of the customer, which is demonstrated in our longstanding relationships going back to 1994. And the belief that if you did those two things, take care of the customer, take care of the people, the other metrics kind of fall into line. And so it was important to us to make sure in an acquisition that we did, this would also be the case. And we certainly found that to be true with G2SF, where they had a similar culture. So, and then finally, I'd say, given that their entire portfolio is full and open, it was very valuable to myself and the leadership team that, the experience that they already have bidding, winning, executing in that full and open space would be experience that would have proven valuable and rub off on the Gunnison folks, the legacy Gunnison folks who have been accustomed to living in the small business set-aside world for the past couple of decades. So at the end of the day, it wasn't a question of why should we go ahead and do this acquisition. Really, the question was, why wouldn't we go ahead and do this acquisition? So it made a lot of sense, and we've been very happy. It's only been a couple months. November 16th was the day we closed, but so far, so good.
So in December, you landed a major $53 million contract from the U.S. Department of Interior. Can you tell us about this award?
Yes. So this came right on the heels of the G2SF acquisition. And so this was a deal that G2SF spent probably the prior 12 months shaping and really working with the customer and working side by side with BMC, the product vendor, to make happen. And so ironically, the day after we closed the G2SF acquisition was the day that they announced the successful award to G2SF. So from a buyer standpoint, very excited on our part. My concern is that we probably set a dangerous precedent in that every subsequent acquisition we end up doing, there's going to be an expectation that we win a $53 million contract the next day. So I'm happy to cross that bridge when we get there, but for now, we're very happy with this work. But a lot of it is tied to customer support system that we're building, not only for DOI, but for all its bureaus. So that includes any software maintenance, hosting, professional services, but using the BMC platform to do that. Kudos to the G2SF team for spending that past year getting that deal to where it was with a successful win, and then kudos to G2SF, nowGunnison's long-standing partner at BMC, to make that happen as well.
So Gunnison has a very impressive board, including the former SRA International CEO Rennie DePentina and IBM's former federal leader Ann Altman. Tell us about their roles and the rest of the board.
Yeah, grateful to have Ann and Rennie joining me on the board, as well as Mark Franz from Blue Delta Capital Partners. And we also have one longstanding shareholder from Gunnison who's on the board as well. So it's the five of us. But Ann, Mark, and Rennie, their support's been invaluable in terms of the relationships they bring to bear when it comes to helping identify new talent, teaming partners, pointing out and making connections with various government decision makers, and then just selfishly for myself, just great folks to bounce ideas off of as we think about constructing the longer term Gunnison strategy and looking at particular acquisition targets along the way. And so, for a first time CEO, couldn't ask for a better supporting cast, providing guidance along the way.
And so what is your growth strategy? Is acquisitions going to be an important part of that, or is there going to be internal growth? Tell us about your growth strategy in the coming year.
Yeah, I'd say it's a yes and, all of the above. I'd say probably four different things I'd look at. Capabilities are important, right? So we're going to be keeping an eye on the market, especially in some of the niche capability areas as they become more commonplace and in some cases commoditized. It's one thing to have the capabilities. I think one of the things Gunnison plus G2SF pride ourselves on is how we apply those capabilities and technologies in a meaningful way. I think that's the true differentiator and the difference maker. And I think there have been a lot of examples over the years in both our respective companies as far as how we've been able to do that successfully. Saving time for the customer through automation and driving innovation to help decrease errors in the production and release process, or saving hours and hours of government PhD statisticians who are spending time doing data validation and having their efforts directed towards more higher value tasks, because we've developed algorithms to kind of scrub all of the data that we're pulling into various data sets. So I think capabilities will be key, and continue to stay on top of that. Vehicle access, especially in the full and open world, is going to be key as well. I alluded to earlier, that G2SF with that acquisition brought 2 full and open vehicles, and then the third one through Department of Interior. So that's going to be very key for us as well, to be successful going forward. And then customer access is going to be key as well. We picked up a few with G2SF, but there are still a few other customer agencies that we either want to double down on. So I'd say DoD, which is a big part of G2SF's portfolio, we'll double down on. HHS has been one for Gunnison that we want to double down on. But there are a couple others we want to pivot and expand into as well. Not trying to boil the ocean, but picking a handful of what we'll call tier 1 cabinet level agencies, DHS and USDA and Treasury being the ones that we want to focus on. And then the last piece is talent, right? At the end of the day, we don't make widgets at Gunnison. The greatest asset that we have are the people that we deliver to our government customers to help them solve their hardest problems. We came up with a tagline, Gunnison makes the impossible possible. And that's due in large part to the people. And so talent's going to be a key differentiator, not just at the leadership ranks, which has been my focus over the past year, bringing on a new CFO. We just had a new chief growth officer start 25 days ago, not that I'm counting. And then just other folks that we're going to be adding to the team to up-level the existing group of folks that have done great work over the years. But credit to the team for having the self-awareness that what got us to where we are now is going to be insufficient to get us to where we need to be. And so we're going to need some additional help to get us there. So I'd say those are the four key tenets of our growth strategy. And then there are going to be times, if I can add a fifth, that doing all that, while great, may require some inorganic growth. So, this acquisition we did with G2SF is not likely to be our last one. And it will depend on the situation. Sometimes the strategy for growth may be more prudent if we try to take our existing tech talent, try to train them, have them get a cert, apply the cert on the contract, get paid to apply that new capability on the contract, call it a qual, use that qual to go bid a new business opportunity, win that opportunity, have a past performance, and go do it again. Or sometimes the more prudent path is, if there's someone out there already doing it, go buy that firm that's already doing it. So it'll be determined on a case-by-case basis, but we're not taking that off the table going forward, especially given how widely successful thus far the G2SF acquisition has been, because of what they've brought to the table in terms of just their mindsets and behaviors and experience living in the full and open world, how they immediately brought us customer access, added some additional capability, and obviously the full and open vehicle access was helpful as well. So we'll keep our eye on what's going on out there. So won't rule anything out at this time.
So for most of your stewardship as CEO, you've been dealing with the pandemic. So yeah, tell us about how you reacted to how we've survived the last year.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways our team's been fortunate in that prior to March of 2020, we were accustomed to operating in a remote setting. Our customers had allowed for us to operate in a remote setting, so that transition for us to going part-time remote to full-time remote perhaps wasn't as disruptive as it might have been for others. And then also, given a lot of this happened prior to the G2SF acquisition in November, where we really weren't working in classified settings. So it wasn't necessary for us to have to be in the office space. So I think we were fortunate in that regard. And then even post-acquisition, we're finding that there's a lot of flexibility that our customers are affording us, even in the DoD space. So I think we've been fortunate in that way. But like everyone else, Zoom or Teams or WebEx, or pick your favorite web conferencing tool, has been critical. But we found ways to try to maintain connectivity with employees. We've done a couple of wellness challenges. So our healthcare provider for the company, Cigna, gave us a pool of wellness dollars, and we applied those dollars to get folks Nike Dry Fit shirts and water bottles, and we had a fitness challenge where we gave away gifts such as Apple Watches and Fitbits and things of that sort. And so it definitely brought out the competitive nature of our folks. But little things like that have been helpful. And then we've been doing regular virtual happy hours with the teams as well, just to maintain connectivity. And then one last thing we started doing around the fall was just giving myself an opportunity to have some one-on-one time with small groups of employees across the company, groups of 4 or 5. So we started this coffee/tea with Gil series. So once a week I would meet with a different group of 4 to 5 employees from across the company, just to hear how things are going. Vegas rules applied, so anything that was said in those sessions stayed in those sessions. I'd say, with the exception of if there were new initiatives or recommendations that folks had in those sessions that we may want to implement as a company, and there were a couple. Obviously, those things are okay to come out of the sessions, but without attribution to anyone in those sessions. So I think those have been helpful. And then we've also surveyed folks as well. So we have a survey platform we've invested in, and so we did a couple pulse surveys throughout the year just to see how folks are doing, how they're dealing with. I think we did one in the fall where folks were just getting back to school, or their kids are getting back to school, to see how folks were coping with that. Did they feel there was sufficient flexibility that Gunnison managers were offering them? Was there sufficient flexibility that the government customers were offering them? Did they feel the company had their back? And so, fortunately, the feedback was positive, but those are the types of things we're monitoring on a regular basis to see how folks are coping. And we haven't set in motion any plans to reopen the office yet, but we're having preliminary conversations with peers in the industry to see how those who are kind of leading forward in that direction are handling it, so that we can benefit from their experiences and not have to relearn any lessons that they had to encounter along the way. So So far so good, short answer, but there's a lot that I want to credit the leadership team at Gunnison for doing to get us and keep us where we are right now.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing. We've been watching you, and it's an exciting story. And your trial by your first year has been an exciting year, and hopefully the next ones continue without some of the challenges we all faced over the last year. So, Gil, thank you. We enjoyed the interview.
No, appreciate it. Had a lot of fun.